For reaction to all of this now, we're going to bring in our State House insiders, Antoine Seawright, our Democratic strategist, Dave Wilson, our Republican strategist. All right, so let's explain this. Lawmakers will be coming back into a special session to deal with issues affecting the legislature. Is that right? And that could include redrawing the congressional lines.
You know, when you do not pass a sign and die resolution, and the governor has the ability to call lawmakers back at any point in time using his executive authority, and it doesn't have to be because of the sign and die. At any point in time, the governor has the ability to convene lawmakers as part of his executive power. And so here we are having discussions about issues pressing the General Assembly. The reason why lawmakers are always so pressed to pass a sign and die resolution, because it puts limitations on what can be discussed after 5 p.m. when the legislative session date closes. And so we'll just see what happens. I do believe that a large part of this will be because of redistricting, and that's a long conversation for a longer day.
Right. It is a misnomer that we keep hearing that the governor is calling them back for redistricting. The governor cannot call the legislature back for any particular purpose, but he can call them back. Now, don't get us wrong here. It is very often that the governor and the members, the leadership in the House and the Senate have come together and said, hey, listen, we need to deal with this issue. I'm going to call you back. But if you don't have a sign and die resolution, to Antoine's point, you don't have the parameters. So if there is no sign and die resolution, which we have seen that there's not with this, then in that particular case, it is wide open. It is as if the calendar never came to a close. They can pick up and discuss any issue that's going on in the legislature.
Senator Shane Massey saying this afternoon there's really nothing for the Senate to do when it comes to redrawing those congressional lines. He says I need more time to look at the maps. He needs public hearings as well. Want to look at the numbers in general here.
Well, first of all, we have always done redistricting every 10 years along with the census. So this mid-decade redistricting is certainly not something that most of Americans, particularly South Carolinians, are accustomed to. We're doing this because Donald Trump literally wants to eliminate black political representation across the South, and South Carolina presents an opportunity to do so. Secondly, if we're going to do this process, Massey is right. We should have hearings across the state so that the people can decide who their lawmakers are, not lawmakers deciding who their people are. That's just customary around the country, how we've done this process, but we're not living in conventional times, so conventional wisdom goes out of the window. When I look at that map and I see Clemson and Carolina in the same congressional district, when I see Oconee and Richland County, who are not communities of interest, aligned in the same district, you have to have general concern. And when you unravel the maps, it's not just redrawing congressional lines. That impacts college board seats for public colleges, the Public Service Commission. It also impacts Santee Cooper, our Ports Authority Board. There's a lot that goes into our congressional seats.
Right. So when you understand that it is not just, hey, listen, we're going to try to put one more red district in South Carolina and make ourselves a 7-0 state, you're actually having down chain impacts on everything else in state government. And that's the repercussions that nobody's really thinking about. Antoine brought up a great point with that. The other thing we have to realize is South Carolina has a 6-1 split for a reason. There's at least a Democratic district in here because it represents a portion of the people of South Carolina. Other states have looked at their maps. Alabama still has a 6-1 split. Louisiana kept at least one Democratic district. Georgia has redone theirs, but they're not having theirs go into effect until 2028. And it's this whole concept is the fact, to Antoine's point, the president has realized that there's nothing within our Constitution that says you have to redistrict after the census. So that level of ambiguity that we have just taken for granted for 250 years now is now being pulled back, and they're going, wait a minute, we can do this anytime. If we keep doing this now, what will stop it from happening every 2 years?
And I would just say South Carolinians, particularly serving abroad, our U.S. military, have already started casting their vote. If you were to redraw lines and reissue the date for our primaries, that means those votes go out of the window. That's not fair to those who cast their vote. They may not even know who the congressperson is, will not have the opportunity to interact with them, so that who they're new to know they're casting their vote for, and it's going to cost the state somewhere between $2 to $4 million. And in August primary, you're going to get low turnout, and it would also mean that people who are running in offices now could potentially file for federal offices if they're not successful. So there's a lot that goes into the dynamics.
I mean, think about it from that standpoint. We're going to have an election on June 9th. We are almost guaranteed to have a runoff on June 23rd. Then all of a sudden, we're going to have another election in August, a potential of another runoff later in August, and then a November election. And so there's going to be voter fatigue coming from that could really impact what goes on in the gubernatorial race in November.
You mentioned that. That's a little political twist here, because if all this happens the way some people have envisioned it, Ralph Norman and Nancy Mace, if they don't make the cut in the gubernatorial race, they could actually refile and run again in their districts. But you would have Nancy Mace competing against Russell Fry in that new district that would be drawn. And it looks like the way the map looks right now, Jim Clyburn would be in the same district as Joe Wilson. At least that's the map that's been put out there.
And that's a valid point. When you run for Congress, you do not have to declare a run in a district where your address is. If you were to win, then you declare a district. So Joe Wilson could run in a district that's in the upstate of South Carolina. Jim Clyburn could run in a district that's in the PD. If you win, then you declare a race. And so that opens up this thing for a can of worms that I don't think any South Carolinian will be able to catch.
This has been an interesting twist. It has given us a lot of time to talk about some really interesting issues. We hope it's some level of civic involvement that you may or may not have gotten in high school or college, but it is an understanding that our Constitution has limitations, but it also has flexibility, and this president takes advantage of those flexibilities and the ambiguity that's there.
And as an American, you should very much so be concerned. Because if this was Barack Obama or Joe Biden or President Kamala Harris making these decisions, I can assure you, the people of South Carolina, knowing how we have voted in the state, they would be so pissed off till the world would almost be set on fire. So we should be concerned as Americans that in a mid-year, this close to the election, we're deciding to redraw lines.
So what do you guys think ultimately happens here? Do you think lawmakers are going to tackle the issue and redraw those lines?
It's hard to say, but we just don't know what that's going to mean, because there will be lawsuits because of some of the things I mentioned, communities of interest still in the Voting Rights Act and such. So there will be lawsuits. So what does the state court say? What does the federal court say? And potentially, what does the U.S. Supreme Court say when votes have already been cast, communities of interest not aligned, and so many other factors?
It really is going to boil down to the process by which this is done. Because if a bill comes from the House, and keep in mind, all 124 members of the House of Representatives.
I'm glad you know how many people in this.
I do know. It's not 140.
because our lieutenant governor does not know. Yeah.
So 124 House seats are up for grabs right now. I mean, we're going to be voting in the House of Representatives. What we don't know after that is how many more other elections they're going to want to begin to manipulate and change and control. And that's the part that's going to be difficult for people to understand. We're making, I don't want to say a mountain out of a molehill, but at the same time, we're messing with a system that we've all been used to.
And that people trust.
Right.
And when the public lose trust in elections, that is a dangerous place in democracy.
All right, Antoine, Dave, guys, as always, thank you so very much for your time. We have much more on this on our website tonight. Simply go to WLTX.com. A quick break.